Let me tell you something most older men never hear. Your age isn't a disadvantage, but it's your superpower. If you know how to use it, younger women aren't just drawn to looks or charm, that they're drawn to presence, intention, the kind of grounded masculinity that only comes with experience, that it's not about pretending to be younger, that it's about owning exactly who you are. Because when an older man does these 4 things, women don't just notice, they respond, not because of how you look, but because of how you make her feel. That let's get into it. That there's something magnetic about a man who moves with certainty, not arrogance, not ego, but a quiet, unshakable clarity. You can feel it when he walks into a room, that it's not in what he says, it's in what he doesn't need to say, that he doesn't have to prove his value. He already knows it. And women, we feel that not just with our eyes, with our intuition. Because here's the truth, women are deeply tuned in. We can tell when a man doubts himself, when he's unsure of what he wants, when he needs our validation to feel whole. That kind of energy, it's exhausting. That it's not leadership, that it's not sexy. But when a man moves with clarity, everything changes. That he doesn't wait for permission, that he creates the path, that he doesn't ask, "Do you want me?" He shows up saying, "I want you, and I'm going to show you why I'm worth choosing." That's not control, that it's not dominance, that it's intention. And in today's world of ghosting and emotional games, intention is rare. Certainty says, "I know who I am, that I know what I offer, and I'm not afraid of intimacy, because I'm not afraid of myself." And here's the wild part, it has nothing to do with being perfect. You can be flawed, you can be healing, you can still be figuring things out, because certainty isn't about having all the answers, it's about being grounded even when the answers aren't clear. It's about knowing your center, and not letting chaos shake it. That's the kind of man women crave, not because he's older, but because he's stable. He becomes the anchor in her storm, the calm in her chaos, the solid masculine presence that lets her feminine relax, open, and trust. She doesn't want to lead the relationship, she wants to lean into it, but she can only do that if you give her something real to lean on. A certainty is in the way you make plans without fumbling, how you state your desires without waiting for hers first, how you hold eye contact, not to impress, not to chase, but to connect. She can feel your spine, she can feel your conviction, and because of that, she feels safe. And a woman who feels safe, she lets her walls down, she stops testing, she starts trusting. So no, you don't need to be the youngest guy in the room, you need to be the one who knows exactly who he is, because a man with certainty, he's not just attractive, he's unforgettable. You don't need 6-pack abs or $1 million bank account. What truly captivates a woman is presence. When you walk in with quiet strength, clarity, and grounded leadership. In a world full of boys playing games, a man who moves with certainty stands out. He makes her feel something real. And once she feels that, she'll crave it again. There's a huge difference between hearing a woman and truly listening to her. Most men catch the words, but miss the emotion. They rush to respond, offer solutions, or talk about themselves. But the man who listens to understand, he pauses. He leans into the silence between her sentences. He asks, what is she really trying to say? That man doesn't interrupt. He doesn't fix. He doesn't judge. He holds space. He lets her speak fully, freely, because he's genuinely curious, not just waiting for his turn. And that kind of listening? That's rare. That's magnetic. You see, a woman doesn't always want answers, she wants to be felt. To feel safe showing the raw, unfiltered corners of her mind without being corrected, minimized, or analyzed. And when you, as a grounded older man, offer her that safety, she softens. She feels seen. That's not just connection. That's intimacy. That's emotional foreplay, because real connection doesn't start with touch, it starts with understanding. The unspoken, when she says, "I'm fine," but you gently ask, "What's really going on?" That's listening, when she's overwhelmed and you say, "I'm here." Take your time, that's listening, when she opens up about her pain and you don't try to solve it, but say, "That must have hurt. I get it." That's listening. Men who develop this kind of emotional intelligence become unforgettable. Because so many women aren't just starved for attraction, they're starved for attention. Not performance, but presence. That it's not about nodding while checking your phone. It's not about waiting to drop your next opinion. It's about putting your ego aside and realizing, being a man isn't about dominating the moment, it's about mastering it. Women are drawn to men who listen to understand, because it makes them feel safe. And when a woman feels emotionally safe, she opens. Mentally, physically, emotionally. Because safety breeds trust. And trust is what unlocks desire. When you stop trying to be interesting, and instead become interested, everything shifts. She feels appreciated. She feels seen. She starts thinking, "This man, he gets me." And that's rare. She may have hundreds of messages, dozens of dates. But the man who truly listens, that's the one she'll remember. That's the one she'll choose, because when a woman no longer has to fight to be heard, she doesn't shrink. She expands. She doesn't filter her thoughts or hide her fire, she brings it all to the table, and when she feels respected, valued, and safe, she doesn't just give you her time, she gives you her heart. Yes, oh no, listening isn't passive. It's powerful. A listening is a superpower. It's not just about hearing words, it's about being fully there. Listening is presence. And presence is what separates the boys from the men, the man who listens to understand, not to respond, not to impress. That's the man she remembers. That's the man she trusts. That's the man she lets in. There's something deeply attractive about a man who doesn't need to perform, flex, or prove anything. He's not chasing approval, because he already knows who he is. While most men are busy trying to be seen, the man with presence, he's felt a presence doesn't beg for attention. It commands it. A performance is loud, but it's flashy, and it's talking about your achievements, name dropping, and buying the most expensive thing in the room, just hoping she notices. Presence, though, presence is quiet, but it's steady, it's grounded, but it's in the calm of your posture, the ease of your tone, the way you look at her like you already know her, and she can't look away. The man who performs is constantly chasing, trying to say the right thing, trying to be the man he thinks she wants, but the man who leads with presence, he doesn't chase. He draws her in, because presence is rooted in emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and confidence that doesn't need a spotlight. In a world full of noise, the present man becomes peace. And here's what most men miss: women don't fall in love with the words, they fall in love with the feeling behind them. Presence creates that feeling. It makes her feel seen, heard, safe, because most women are used to men who perform affection but disappear emotionally. Men who know the lines, but not the depth. Men who promise intimacy, but can't sit in silence and just be a presence is rare. And rare is irresistible. You're not checking your phone. You're not waiting for your turn to talk. You're with her, fully, and she feels that a presence doesn't try to impress. It simply is that it's the man who can sit across from her, say nothing, and still make her feel like the only woman in the world. He doesn't need to interrupt to prove he's smart. He doesn't need to flash status to feel powerful. He doesn't need to be anyone else, because who he is enough. Older men, especially, have this edge, because they've lived long enough to stop pretending, to drop the mask, to honor their truth. And when a man stops trying to be the fantasy, he becomes the foundation, and that's what she truly wants. Not just a spark, but structure. Not just attention, but depth. She doesn't need perfection. She needs presence, and the man who gives her that, he holds her, without touching, understands her, without speaking, and stays in her heart long after he leaves the room, because performance fades, but presence lingers. And when you have that, you don't need to try so hard to be desired. You are. Let this land. A man without boundaries is a man without value. Women don't fall for the man who says yes to everything. They fall for the man who knows when to say no, and says it without apology. Some men believe that being agreeable, always available, and endlessly accommodating will make a woman stay. That being nice equals being loved. But that's not how it works. Sure, she might smile, nod, and say thank you, but deep down, she's losing respect. Why? Because boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're walls that protect your value. They communicate self-worth. They show her that you have standards, and that those standards won't shift just because she's beautiful, upset, or trying to push your limits. And yes, she will test you. Not to hurt you, but because it's instinct. Whether she realizes it or not, she wants to feel your strength. Not just in your body, in your presence. She's asking, can this man hold his frame when things get hard, or will he fold just to keep me happy? A man with boundaries earns respect. And respect is the foundation of real desire. Boundaries aren't about control. They're not about making her submit. They're about honoring yourself, so what you give is real, not resentful. That a man with boundaries doesn't explain himself to win approval. He doesn't justify or defend them. He lives them. Quietly. Unapologetically, and women feel that. They feel that edge. That firmness. That masculine clarity. It creates polarity. It sparks tension. The good kind. The kind most modern relationships are missing. Masculine leadership. When you say, I don't accept disrespect, and actually walk away when it happens, she knows you mean it. When you say, I value consistency, and don't chase her when she flakes, she notices. When you say, I need space to recharge, and don't apologize for it, she doesn't feel rejected. She feels your depth. You're not managing her emotions, you're managing your energy. And that makes you powerful. A love isn't about self-sacrifice. It's about showing up fully and letting the right person meet you there. You don't beg to be chosen. You choose, and then let her choose you back, from a place of mutual respect. And when you lead with that kind of clarity, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to hold on to her, but because she can feel that you'd still be whole if she left. That's what drives her wild. That's what makes her chase you. Because she knows she can't manipulate you. She can't move your line. She can't blur your rules with charm, and that's real attraction. She doesn't lean away, she leans in, she listens more. She values your time, she starts treating you like the man you already decided to be, long before she came along. So don't drop your standards to keep her, hold them, and let her rise, because the man who keeps his boundaries doesn't just get a woman. He attracts the right woman, not one drawn to his people-pleasing, but to his power. He doesn't just date her. He elevates her, not with pressure, not with fear, but by being a man she can look up to, without ever feeling looked down on. That's leadership. That's magnetism. That's a man she won't forget. Mentorship versus domination. There's a subtle but powerful difference between leading and controlling. Too many men blur the line without realizing it. They mistake dominance for guidance, control for care. What they call leadership is often insecurity in disguise. And instead of elevating the woman beside them, they end up diminishing her. But the man who truly mentors, he's different. He doesn't correct her to feel superior. He teaches because he wants to see her evolve. Women might not say it out loud, but they feel it. We crave a man who can challenge our thinking without silencing our voice. A man who can sharpen us without dimming our light. One who holds wisdom, not as a weapon, but as a gift. This kind of man doesn't lead with ego. He leads with presence. He influences, he doesn't impose. He sees potential, not problems. He encourages her truth, even when it pushes against his own. He's not threatened by her ambition, her fire, or her ideas. He fans the flame. That's real masculine leadership, because domination says, be quiet. I know better. But mentorship says, I see who you can become, and I'll walk with you as you rise. Older men, especially, you have something sacred to offer. Life has tested you. You've fallen. You've risen. You carry lessons, perspective, depth. But here's the key, share it as a gift, not a rule book. A woman doesn't open up when she feels managed. She opens when she feels respected. She leans into your wisdom when it feels like an invitation, not an obligation. She trusts your direction when she knows you see her as an equal, not a project. When done right, mentorship becomes seduction, not the manipulative kind, but the inspiring kind. Because nothing pulls a woman deeper than a man who genuinely believes in her evolution. Yes, she may resist it. She may challenge you. She may push back. But that's when your presence matters most. Not to overpower her, but to hold your ground with grace. To be strong without being harsh. Guiding, without gripping. A domination demands submission, but mentorship creates devotion. The man who mentors without controlling becomes the one she chooses to grow beside, not the one she tries to escape. He becomes her safe space and her stretch zone, her ground and her wings. And here's the beautiful truth, you don't need to be loud. You don't need to prove anything, just be rooted in who you are. Let her rise in the energy you offer, show her what patience looks like. Model emotional maturity. Lead with action, not command. That's the kind of man who doesn't just win her body, he wins her mind, her respect, her loyalty, and her heart. In the deepest way possible. Because there's a world of difference between a man who chases a woman and a man who chooses her. the man who chases is often running from rejection, from loneliness, from insecurity. He performs. He overreaches. He begs to be chosen, and in the process, forgets his own worth, but the man who chooses knows who he is. He doesn't need to chase. He invites. And because of that, she chooses him right back to at first. The attention feels flattering, the consistency, the effort. But over time, chasing starts to feel different. It becomes clingy. It feels needy. It gets heavy, because chasing doesn't come from confidence, it comes from lack. But a man who chooses? That's different. He doesn't move from emptiness. He moves from fullness. He's not hoping to be picked. He's already chosen himself. He knows his worth. He knows his standards. He knows exactly the kind of woman who aligns with his values. When he chooses her, it's not because he needs her to fill a void. It's because he sees something real, something that deserves time, presence, and emotional investment, not for validation. For connection, chasing says, I'll bend myself to be what you want. Choosing says, I know who I am, and I see potential with you. Women don't want to be pursued like prey, they want to be seen, understood, respected. A man who chooses does exactly that. He's intentional. He's clear. He's direct, never desperate. If she pulls back, he doesn't beg. If she plays games, he doesn't participate. He watches. He listens. He decides. If she doesn't reciprocate, he doesn't lower his value. He steps away. Not to punish. Not to manipulate, but because he knows, he doesn't chase what doesn't see his worth. The man who chooses moves with calm energy. He's grounded. He's whole, and that energy? It's magnetic, because it's rare. Because it feels safe, because it invites her to rise. Instead of pulling him down. He creates space for mutual pursuit. He gives, where it's returned. He invests, where it grows. He shows interest, without sacrificing dignity. And that's sexy, because she knows, if she disrespects the effort, he'll walk away, not to win, not to prove a point, but because a man who values himself won't stay where he's undervalued. Choosing her means seeing her clearly, without losing sight of himself. It means wanting her, without needing her approval. It means showing up, without shrinking down. And when a woman feels chosen, not chased, she feels something deeper. She doesn't just feel desired, she feels respected, she feels honored, she feels safe with a man who doesn't need her, but still wants her. That's a man she trusts. That's a man she opens to. That's a man she craves. Again and again. So stop chasing to be accepted, start choosing to be respected, because when you choose instead of chase, you stop being an option and become the standard. You don't need youth, you don't need charm, you don't need games, you just need depth, presence, certainty. Because when a man leads from within, with truth and quiet power, he doesn't just attract her. He leaves a mark she can't forget.